The following interview has been conducted as part of the Price of Freedom Oral History Series, sponsored by the Madison County Military Heritage Commission. Our goal is to inform the public of the sacrifices made by veterans in our community on battlefields around the world. Each veteran interviewed received a Valor Award for their heroism during combat and is a member of the Military Heritage Hall of Heroes. We wish to thank the Huntsville School System and the ETV Broadcast Center for their help in presenting this Military Heritage program. Hello everyone, I'm Tom Kennemer. Welcome to our program. Today it's our pleasure to talk with Medal of Honor recipient Mike Sprayberry. Mike received the military's highest award for valor on the battlefield for his heroic action while serving in Vietnam in 1968. He's also the recipient of the Purple Heart for wounds he suffered in country. Mike served 20 years in the U.S. Army and retired in 1988 as a lieutenant colonel. He was inducted into the Madison County Military Heritage Hall of Heroes in 2020. Mike, it's a pleasure to have you with us, sir. Thanks for your time.
Well, I'm glad to be here, Tom.
Good to be with you.
These days with COVID, it's good to be out anywhere.
Yes, sir. It's good.
Feels a little strange yet, but
to be able to move around a little bit, enjoy
indeed.
Each other's company like we used to do, I guess. Mike, tell us a little about yourself. First of all, where are you originally from?
I was born in Georgia, in LaGrange, right across the state line. Of course, none of us have any say about that, but and we only have a piece of paper that says that it happened. But I was born there, and my birth mom was a teenage mother. Very hard times for her, and it seems so. I was adopted within the family by my uncle and aunt, and even remember the day. It was a very difficult time for her, but she gave me a choice, and I still remember that from being a 5-year-old, that it was my choice, and if it didn't work out, I could always come home. So over the years, I got to spend my time with both families, both wonderful families that worked out to be a perfect adoption. Never heard a harsh word between my two moms. And they were wonderful people, but I got to enjoy spending time with old river rats over on the Coosa River and on the Chattahoochee and in the summertime. So it was just basically a Tom Sawyer type of upbringing, so I really enjoyed it, and I feel most privileged to have known such wonderful people and growing up in two families and blessed to have been so.
What spurred your interest in the military as you grew up? Did you have relatives that were in the military?
I did, but amazingly, sometimes, particularly the World War II guys, didn't really talk about that. It was really, I mean, I knew that some were and some weren't. My adopted dad, for example, had terrible eyesight all of his life, was not draftable or whatever. But my Uncle Red, for example, I knew he was, but it was at his funeral when a guy told me that he was with Patton and went the whole distance in Europe and so forth. But as being a real military family, no, not really. So you wonder about things like that. Actually, my first experience was shell shock, which is different from PTSD. We were having Sunday dinner with a guest preacher one day. I think I was probably maybe 10 at the time. And after dinner we were out, white shirts and so forth, and someone across the hill over there is doing some target practice. And this guest preacher is on the ground in his white shirt, just clawing the ground. And kind of shocking to me, but my uncle said, well, it's the war, don't worry about it. So when you approach going into those things, you need to go into it with your eyes open as much as you can. But and the military is not for everybody. You find that out sometimes the hard way. But I basically boredom. I was in junior college down in Atlantic City, having too good of a time. Figured I wouldn't live long like that, so I was sitting in the barber shop one day, and I was looking through the Time magazine of Time or Life, I'm not sure. I believe Burroughs is the photographer's name,
Okay.
and he had run a spread on these guys out in the jungles of Vietnam helping the Vietnamese, and I thought, you know, that sounds kind of interesting. I think I'll do that and relieve my boredom.
See the world a little bit, maybe, yeah.
So I went down and signed up to be airborne. Oh, I thought that would be exciting. But I ended up, once they figured out I could type, sitting in a classroom in South Carolina in the middle of the summer with guys that had never touched a typewriter. So fortunately, when I went through basic at Fort Benning, company commander called me in and says, yeah, I want you to sign this, and I want you to go to officer candidate school. I thought, ooh, really? So they send you on a little tour, you know, of officer training at Fort Benning and so forth and so on. So I went ahead and signed it, so didn't think anything else about it. So after a couple of weeks of hot, sweaty boredom of sitting in 4 hours a day with guys that couldn't type, here come the orders to go to OCS at Fort Knox. And so I did that, and finally, interesting experience in itself, basically harass you to death. But if you survive that, you do get your commission, and that was in January of '67.
How long was that training, Mike?
Roughly 6 months,
Uh-huh.
yeah, more or less. You have some breaks in between.
Basically, you had to go through boot camp again, in a sense, yeah.
Yeah. In fact, it's actually, if you prepare yourself to be a little physically fit before you go into basic, you have a much easier time. But, you know, my family prepared me for OCS because basically they harassed me a whole lot in a fun way. So there wasn't much they could say to me that I haven't heard before.
Right.
So, you know.
Yeah. Now, how long? Where did you go after your training? Were you stationed in the U.S. before you went to Vietnam?
It was pretty much a requirement that you spend time in a unit somewhere in the States to basically acclimatize to, you know, being a troop leader and so forth. Mm-hmm. So they sent me back to Benning, and I was a platoon leader and an XO in a executive officer in an armor battalion that did training for the infantry at Fort Benning. But I got a little bored again and decided, oh, hey, I've got to get this Vietnam thing over with sooner or later, so here, send me early. So I didn't complete my full tour there. So. Yeah. And they were happy to send me there, I think.
Mike, let's go back just a little bit. Do you remember when you came in officer, do you remember your first salute, and how was it? You know, because you're enlisted and you become an officer. How was that? Do you still remember that?
It was, you know, it was a tradition that the NCOs and things that had trained you over the time, when you graduated, you know, you would walk out of the theater, of course, and you're supposed to get your first salute and hand them $1.
Okay.
Well, I took the side exit. So actually, I was at Fort Benning before I got my first salute.
Okay. Now, so you left Benning and you went to Vietnam, straight to Vietnam. Is that right? Okay. Yeah. Now, where were you stationed at first? Around the Saigon area, or what province or what area?
Actually, very. You know, when you come in and you're not staying there, you don't spend a lot of time in Saigon. You just go through the routine of, you know, who's your next of kin, and again, you do that several times, so forth. Most of the time was Central I Corps, west of Da Nang and Tam Kỳ, when the Marines, as you know, you're a proud Marine, handed over that portion of I Corps and kept the beautiful beaches for themselves. How did you do that?
Well, you know, that's the way it goes sometimes.
But mostly after that, spent most of my time in Northern I Corps, in north of Hue and Ashaw Valley, Khe Sanh, there again, the Marine. Oh, that was a horrible place, you know. No one wanted to be there.
Hot, very hot.
Hot,
Yeah.
red, dusty, dirty. It was such a horrible place that we perhaps should never have been in anyway.
Yeah.
We have this big bad habit of taking over existing airfields that are not defensible from a military standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
So, but most people know the story of Quezon, but if we had known the situation of the Marines as individual guys from the first Cav, we might have been a little kinder to you guys.
Mm-hmm. So tell us, you're in the first Cav, right?
Yes,
Your
first
outfit.
Cav.
Okay, yeah. What were your duties at first, Mike, when you first got there as a young lieutenant? What did you have to do?
Well, you go through this process. You see, from the enlisted guy's point of view, there are only two types of lieutenants, and they're not first and second. You have good lieutenants and bad lieutenants. So you go through this process of hopefully becoming a good lieutenant. And fortunately for me, not because of my person, but because I had some really fabulous NCOs and some fabulous privates who saw that in their benefit to make me a better lieutenant, and they did. And I hope I learned a lot from them and made my share of mistakes, but unfortunately I don't think any of those really dumb things you do in combat hurt anybody else that it wasn't intended to. So I think I had a pretty good time, and actually I want to tell you about a very wise sergeant on the flight over. Didn't know him, can't recall his name. So I have my apprehensions, and my big concern about completing OCS was if you want to be in this position, but if you make a mistake, it can cost somebody their life. And I really, that was the physical part of it, the harassment part, the academic part of it was not part of it. But I did struggle with basically what happens if you fail, you know, someone.
Let the men down, that sort of thing, yeah.
So there was an empty seat there, and the good sergeant came up and said, Lieutenant, excuse me, but you look a little apprehensive, and I think I know what your problem is. He says, this is my third tour back, probably one of the guys from your era in '62, and this was '67.
Yeah.
He says, I think you're concerned that you will let your guys down or that you will fail. And he said, I just want to tell you that that's not going to happen. And with those words of wisdom that no one he ever knew failed his men, I think that put me off on the right start for Vietnam. And it worked well. And I think I eventually became, in spite of myself, a good lieutenant.
Stayed with you even to this day. Right.
Well, yes, it does. And of course, at the time, you don't fully appreciate, you know, random acts of kindness like that.
Wisdom. Passed along some wisdom to it.
Wisdom and kindness.
Mike, tell us a little about when you had some downtime, however little that was, to relax. What could you do? Did you pull up a, you know, something out of a tent, you know, watch a movie or something, or play tables?
You want me to tell you how I got kicked off of Wonder Beach, which was run by the Seabees in the Navy? Okay. When we came out of the Ashaw, of course, we had not had a change of clothes and had terrible diarrhea for about a month there. So we were sent out to a little supply depot just on the north of way there called Wonder Beach. And we thought, oh, great, you know, the guys are going to swim in the ocean and have a great time. So and we were to pull security there, but after a few days, I mean, I had guys coming up to me and saying, yeah, when are we going back in the jungle, LT? I'm tired of this stuff, because we were basically, the enlisted guys were pulling just details that nobody wanted to do, digging officer latrines and so forth. And out in on our own in the jungle, of course, you're kind of on your own and you get to make some decisions and so forth. So we had a group of Vietnamese civilians out in the wire, and they call up and say, gee, you know, what do we do with these guys? And I said, oh, just fire a couple of rounds over the head and run them out of the wire there. And same day we had we had a couple of armed NVA walk in down by the beach there, and one of my good friends now, trying to get me fired, said, oh, you know, he took them in, gave them some beer, you know, gave them something to eat.
Yeah.
Forgot to disarm them. So,
So
he takes them up to the Navy headquarters there and turns them over eventually. They're half drunk, of course. So I get this call from this admiral that politely asked us to go to another place. So, well, not maybe it wasn't that politely, but
so
anyway.
you didn't run off, essentially, right?
Well, we were glad to get out of the place,
Right,
quite frankly. So our attempt to include the USO show that turned into a major disaster, you know, they would bring out these little shows. And if you recall the scene from Apocalypse Now, that's the origins of that scene. It was a little Korean entertainment group. And one of the guys jumps up on the stage and says, I'm from the cab, and, you know, starts kind of fondling the girls there. And that didn't go over too well. It started a few fist fights, and we were getting people out of the Connex jails the next morning. And it was an experience that was supposed to be fun, that as in most things that go in war, it didn't turn out that way.
It didn't quite turn out
But
as
it was
planned.
an adventure.
Right.
And they ended up, of course, having to abruptly throw the entertainers on the helicopter and fly them out. You recall that scene, but I don't know who particularly wrote that, but they had to be there or someone had to tell them about it, but that's where it came from.
Yeah.
So.
Mike, I want you now to describe the scene, the battle, for which you would later receive the Medal of Honor. And I want to add, it was one day, I believe, after your, was it your 22nd birthday?
21st.
21st birthday, yeah. Describe that scene for us.
We were sent to the Ashaw to, no one had been there in a couple of years other than some SF recon units and so forth. And we really did not expect, were not appraised of the real threats, particularly to the helicopters. And I might say later on, a good Marine general, Ray Davis. Ray was a thinking Marine, and he did it better than we did when even with Hamburger Hill and some other things later on. But our job in particular was to clear a connecting road between two roads into Laos that were used regularly to resupply troops that harassed Quang Tri, Hue, and those provinces. And so we got to the LZ, finally selected one, found out it was a hot LZ. So I got, I'd go to flight school later on, but I got shot down for the first time on short final into the LZ there, lost a couple of guys.
Is that when you were wounded, Mike?
I don't count. We lost two guys permanently.
Yeah.
But you get to a point where you either die on the aircraft or you have to go somewhere at, 15 feet or so.
Exactly.
And it's not a very, very pleasant experience once you hit the bomb crater to watch that big yellow tip on the rotor blade coming at your head. But I got through that one, and our job was to patrol to the west, my particular company, and clear the road between the two connecting roads running to Laos. And almost every turn of the road, of course, was pretty well defended. So it took us a long time to make a lot of progress, and they reached a point, of course I was, by that time, not a platoon leader, but the executive officer. And they had reached a point where it was very heavily defended point in a saddle, typical NBA saddle defense. And every time they went around the corner of the road, of course, you took heavy fire and you took casualties. And the entire road was banked on the north side by a completely solid 200 to 300 foot basalt cliff. So you basically have no choice on how to get there. So the battalion commander decided that the way to get there was to scale the cliff with one platoon and try to flank the NVA defenders, and that did not work out well. Of course, they walked, anybody can get ambushed, and this one was very well done. It would be years later when one of the local Vietnamese commanders there would tell me that we ran into what they call the Special Ambush Unit, and that's all they did, and they did it well. And unfortunately, it was late in the day. They were trying to get back to the rest of the company.
Right.
Company commander had gone with them because they had a new, good lieutenant, but a new lieutenant. So he took the command group with him, and unfortunately, he became a casualty. The platoon leader was killed, along with 3 other fine individuals. And I think we had 11 wounded out of that one platoon, and 8 of those were stretcher cases. So we're split. We can't get around the corner because of a machine gun and in a small cave on the other side of the corner. So the decision, and excuse my crutch word of so, the battalion commander said, oh, well, you know, we'll continue tomorrow, which was what U.S. troops usually did. But I simply told him that they probably won't be there tomorrow, the survivors. So we decided, really without permission, that we'd just go do it at night. And at least we would have the cover of night to get as close as we could and try and breach the defenses and reach our guys and get them out. And we had you know, when you see guys, maybe guys that you think are not the strongest member of the unit, that these people sometimes are just waiting for an opportunity to show you what they can do. And when you see a bunch of people put themselves in harm's way, voluntarily, intentionally, to do something, if you see that one time in your life, you don't have to tell them what to do. They just react instinctively. Everyone did what they were supposed to do, and that's the reason it succeeded.
With your leadership?
Well, I hung around. You know.
Well, I know the grenades, you had several grenades that helped out to get these men out of that, and that's one of the things that you're applauded for. And Mike, this was went on for what, 6, 7, 8 hours, this operation?
I think it was 7.5 officially. I wasn't counting time.
Yeah. Well, did you get all of the guys out, or some?
No, we did not. Unfortunately, we had we knew where the lieutenant was, so we did get him out. Got his body out anyway. But the other 3 individuals, the point where the ambush was sprung was when the immediate point when they were on point, and 2 of the guys had just volunteered because it was getting late in the day. They had replaced some newer guys on point. So the moment they hit the road and the saddle was when the ambush was sprung. And actually, I think the Vietnamese sprang it a little early, even though they were pros. And it's a situation where you just do the best you can, and sometimes you get lucky with a grenade, and I couldn't miss. For some reason, they couldn't hit me. So our point, we got very close. In fact, it was totally pitch black dark. I couldn't recognize Tom from this distance. Right. So you come to points where you would already brief the guys, quiet, don't fire unless you got to, because they'll know where we are. So we had the advantage. They were firing, we weren't unless we had to. And it did work out well as could, but still as of today, we have still 3 fine individuals who need to be returned to their families and to their home country. Mm-hmm. So we're working on that still. A few days later, when we were being pulled off of the road and replaced with a different company, the light observation helicopter, LOACH, which we call them, shows up. And I kind of know what they're there for. So I'm the commander then, and the XO, I look at it and said, Dan, go up and talk to these guys and make sure they know where the 50 caliber is up there. So he did, and he came back and he said, well, the pilot said, you want the guys back, don't you? We're going to go find them. So they took off. 5 minutes later, they're on the ground. 3 more missing, still missing individuals. So through false reporting or inaccurate reporting of the locations and so forth, if you do a typo on a grid coordinates, you know, in a report, 20 years later, it's difficult for somebody to, and they were about 800 meters off as to where the location. And I'm still in the military. Nobody asked me. I don't know the situation until I'm sitting at my desk at Fort Knox. And the phone rings, and it's the brother-in-law and father of one of the missing guys. And I was kind of surprised to find out that nobody had gone back in, located them, returned them. But that was the situation. So we've been working and since then to accomplish that. But since they're all our guys, now I'm kind of expanded. I work with the Defense Agency for recovering folks. Well, let's say they tolerate me anyway.
Is that part of the Medal of Honor Society?
Well, no, actually they are a DOD agency, which that is their job. They work out of Hawaii, and they work not just Vietnam, but now they've expanded to Europe and so forth. It's a situation where lack of details, if you miss by an inch, you miss by a mile when you're trying to excavate, you know, a grave that's 50 years old.
Right.
So it becomes a lot of detail, but I've met a lot of wonderful and helpful Vietnamese individuals who they have the knowledge, you know. They know where everything was around there, even though it's the evidence of where things were is getting smaller and smaller. The times were very difficult on them in those days following the war. And of course, scavenging metal from helicopters and things like that became their source of income and how they feed their families, and you can't blame them. But it's been a great experience working with them and working with the Vietnamese team and the American team, which worked jointly to return those individuals. So gradually, kind of the resident expert on the ASHA, just because of my brief time there. But gradually I've expanded because there are so many compelling cases. And people, I'm working, for example, with a guy on the West Coast, a small group to return. It's not just Vietnam that is unique to the bad reporting. And we just didn't realize how important those reports would be, or we would have used more care.
Right.
But back to the subject, to recover 6 missing Marines from Guadalcanal.
Yeah.
And I've expanded to other areas of Vietnam. For my own particular company, later we would lose 2 other MIAs, still missing. So, but I've expanded my scope to a great many areas, because it's simply, when you're asked to help on such compelling cases, you simply can't say no.
Mike, how many times have you been back to Vietnam and that particular site where the battle took place?
8 times.
8 times. Wow.
And it's been excavated 3 or 4 times. We have difficulties Of course, you know, after the war in particular, I don't think we really appreciated what premium the North Vietnamese put on American bodies in those days. And there was a lot of trading of remains and so forth. So you need those individuals who, for humanitarian reasons, know where those remains went and who has them. And,
Essential, yeah.
And so
Really
it's,
is, yeah.
but I'm kind of the Inspector Clouseau of investigators, but for some reason, the locals in Vietnam are less reluctant to talk to me than they are to talk to a government official. Yeah. And DPAA, the organization that does it for our government, they recognize that, and some kind of give me a free hand in what I do. So.
Mike, I like to ask all of our veterans we interview, and going back to the battle, is it okay to be afraid or scared during combat? How would you answer that, as much as you had gone through?
It's about your best friend. I really don't want to be around anyone who, it's a good motivator, and it gets you through a lot of things. It helps you survive. I kind of smile when I see these little no fear stickers on the back of pickups. That's not a great idea. It's a pretty impractical situation, and in any situation, a danger. It can, at times, consume people to where they can't control that fear. But those situations are very rare. And you try and look for those situations in individuals, and if possible, cut them some slack, and you are actually grateful when someone comes to you and says, LT, I just can't do this anymore. So you try to find answers, if you can do without them, to give them a few days rest or something. And so fear, you better be. I don't want to be around the guy who has no fear. That's not an appropriate response for the situation.
Mike, talk about how your life has changed since you received the Medal of Honor.
I try not to be a full-time recipient because I learned early on how to say no, thank you. Because you simply cannot do that without becoming, consuming your entire time. And like one of our local recipients, Mike Rose, says, you know, I got to cut my grass. So,
Still have to do the work around the home.
Yeah, and you have a life that you have to pursue like everyone else, and with all these additional responsibilities. And of course, the biggest responsibility is really, you know, the medal is a perfect standard. We are not. We hope to get close enough, and all medals for valor, I believe, have that standard. And you really, being an imperfect person, realize that. But changing your life, yes, it's a life changer, no matter what you say, because it changes other people's expectations of you. And you have an obligation to support the character and the integrity of the award itself.
I want you to describe the scene, what it meant to you to be recognized by the President of the United States for your actions on the battlefield. And what year was that? Was that
69.
69, yeah.
Pretty surreal, you know. I, of course, took my adopted family, but then they said, oh, you can't bring your birth family. I expected to be able to take some people that were there with me, and of course the response was, oh, you can't do that. But the actual event itself, it has very much a surreal quality to it. I mean, you go through it, but it's sort of a dream-like quality. Yeah. Is this really happening?
Yeah.
Like a lot of things you think about that, particularly the stupid things you did in Vietnam and survived. it has a surreal quality, and you think, did I really go there? Did I really do that? But yes, you can't help but be, it doesn't matter who the president is. This, of course, was President Nixon.
Right.
And I guess my takeaway on him is you immediately recognize how smart that guy was. I'd been told later that he actually knew the names of every individual in every county and every state and whatever they ever campaigned in. And so we spend our 10 or 15 minutes with him, and he's talking to us like he knows everything about us. And there were 3 other recipients there. And I asked the military aide about, who briefed this guy, Said nobody briefed him, we just handed him the files and he read them. So, and he's conversing like he's known Mike all of his life. So it was an interesting experience. So.
I want you to talk about the process, Mike, the evaluation, if you will, how it's determined that someone will receive the Medal of Honor. Talk about that for us.
Oh, I think, of course, that's changed over time. It's an evolving process. And I sometimes, the military is really good on slogans. The Army in particular, they go from, one-man army to be all you can be, and, currently it's leave no man behind. Well, I left some guys behind. So it would be questionable in today's environment whether or not someone along the way might say, oh, you left guys behind, no thank you. But that was my decision to be made on the battlefield, and no one else should interfere with that. It had to be. We tried again the next morning to get back, collect the bodies. You have another guy wounded. How much are you willing to pay in lives to live up to no man left behind? So that standard is kind of nebulous, but the actual standard is almost impossible to reach except by default. I can't say that I've ever known anyone that set out to do that intentionally and survived it. We have about 60-something% of the awards presented posthumously. In fact, it's kind of funny that my company clerk, who needed a break from the field, and I said, Joe, can you type? When they sent out a request for people that can type, they said, a little bit. So I sent him back to the rear to be a typist, and when I look at my original form that Joe typed up for me, he first checked posthumously and then erased it. So I kid him a lot about that. But anyway, it's there are always people, and it doesn't matter. We think we took very good care of, I do, of our guys, but yet there are always situations when guys will come up and say, I didn't get my Bronze Star for this or that, and you try and make up for that. Of course, at the level of the Medal of Honor, we all accept that there are guys out there who legitimately deserve an award, possibly the Medal of Honor. I'm often asked to assist in that, but it is the policy of the Medal of Honor Society not to become involved in that, because you can do it as an individual, of course. But I always decline it because, one, I think the military is somewhat skeptical and resentful of interference in the official approval process. But yes, there will always be people who are, do not get credit because of lack of witnesses or because
documentation or whatever.
Yes, or in some cases, we have had people who have been recommended 4 times, and or people who's somewhere along the way, some staff officer just round file their recommendation. So some of the relooks and things like that, as long as they meet the same standards of the rest of the Medal of Honor recipients, it's a good thing.
Yeah.
But it's difficult to do, and I know that a lot of people, I hate to say no, I can't do that. But the fact of the matter is, I'm not a witness to their situations.
Right.
And that's basically what it requires. And there are varying definitions of eyewitnesses. For example, I told you it was very dark that night. And in fact, we had a situation where the Vietnamese walk up as close as you and I and began speaking Vietnamese to me. So what's an eyewitness? It's dark. You know? So it changes over time, but I think the idea is the changes are to pursue the perfect standard that the medal represents, and that's the way it should be. And unfortunately, not everybody, regardless of the level of award for heroism, will ever be recognized.
Mike, how do you respond when people call you a hero, when you read about or hear about what you did in combat? How does that make you feel?
You know, I'm still reluctant to try and quantify or qualify that because I still struggle with the definition of it. We have people every day that do amazingly heroic things. Looking back at 9/11, watching it on TV, I understand why guys run into buildings that are falling down and on fire and so forth in an effort to help. That's something that my experiences in Vietnam gave me an insight to. Now we have a generation that perhaps, 20 years ago, they're going into adulthood and do not understand the meaning of 9/11. So I'm not, I really struggle with the definition of heroes. We have football heroes, we have guitar heroes, we have, So I'm a war hero, but the good thing is that I get to hang out with a really unique bunch of guys that in themselves, not as recipients, are great people. And most of them, beyond the medal, are giving back in ways that they have determined are important to them. This little, I don't usually wear pins, this little pin. Our last surviving World War II recipient, Woody Williams from Iwo Jima campaign, his passion is honoring Gold Star families, families that lost, like my wife Julie, her brother in Vietnam, and to pay tribute to them for their pain and anguish at their loss, which just completed Memorial Day. And it's difficult to imagine there again that I am that guy. I am the fortunate one.
Right.
That survived, first of all, and that was recognized, second of all. So I try to do what events I can, but with my other endeavors of research, basically, and of course, Julie works a lot with Gold Star families
Your
and
wife,
trying to,
your wife, Julie, right.
Trying to unite people who served with the families of those they lost, if they wish. And she does every other year a reunion for the Gold Star families. They're invited, and those, it's a huge step for both sides. In Vietnam, basically you're told, here's your boy, bury him, and that was it. A lot of these people, well, they haven't spoken their lost loved one's name in 50 years. In public or among the family. So it's a huge step. But to see that come together and that relief, it's a wonderful thing. So we try and work on that, and we appreciate Woody's work. But most of the recipients, for example, Mike Rose, locally here, he does scholarships. And even though Mike, for one reason or another, is a recent recipient, he already had a full life before he received the medal. But still he continues his work. Benny Atkins, that we just lost, one of the old SF guys down in South Alabama, to COVID, God bless his heart. Scholarships for Special Forces children and so forth.
Right.
So most every recipient beyond the medal is doing something else.
They're involved.
That they're involved in.
Good endeavors.
Yeah.
Mike, I want to ask you.
But hero, I can't define that for you. IRB one, but I don't know really what it means. It means so many different things to different people.
It's often said here in America we're only one generation away from losing our freedom. I want you to expand on that, what that statement really means to you.
Well, we mentioned earlier about it is a generational thing. And I really think that people do not understand the history of, say, recent wars like Vietnam. But for the rest of us, the ghost of Vietnam is always going to be with this country. The mistakes we made, and hopefully we learn through those mistakes. So it is important that each generation understand through education that process that has gotten them to that point, so that we don't repeat the failures. We try and work with our successes and repeat those. And I don't think that's being done on a generational basis, and you can't rely, God bless them, the families that bring their kids to Veterans Day or Memorial Day events or whatever. It's not necessary that they have served. I've seen the countries where everybody has to serve, and believe me, they're nice to visit, but you don't want to live there. As an example, we had the traveling wall here in Huntsville recently. And the most memorable couple, even though there were a lot of people tearfully looking for someone's name that they knew, I asked this one couple if I could help them locate a name, and they said, oh, we're not here because we're looking for anyone in particular. We just want to come and pay tribute. You can always do that, and I think, but you can't rely on the family to do that for every child. So I think that it's important to have an institutional awareness for younger generations or generations as a whole. And unfortunately we have, I think most everybody after 9/11 gets the message. They get it. But we will always have a few who don't,
Right.
who might need to be sent to kindergarten again.
Mike, during the Vietnam era, there were protests against the war, especially in the late 60s, early 70s. Did you ever encounter any protest, and if so, how did you feel about it?
Oh, I have to say thank you. Because I came back from Vietnam, of course, into Seattle, still having a few problems these days, and ran into this less than friendly group. So I came back with orders to get out of the military. And I took one look at that situation and decided, you know, I don't belong with them. So what will I find when I get home? So anyway, I chose to do another year, and it led to another year and whatever, you know. And at a point, I took a 2-year break in service. And thanks to a couple of old World War I veterans from South Alabama, they were cousins, and one of them talked to his other cousin at 14, lying about his age, big gangly kid at the time. But they were the best of buddies, though. And they basically said, Mike, you're stupid. You can hold your breath for 8 years, you know. And of course, at that time, I'd never thought about retirement or, you know, reaching this age or whatever. So I did think about it, and I eventually went back in and finished up my minimum time for retirement in the reserves, or as a reserve officer on active duty. But that group outside of Seattle really didn't realize they were doing me a favor. So whether or not they were abusing their freedoms or whatever, in my opinion, or being disrespectful of guys that I had a serious respect for, that's part of it. But I owe them a lot. You know, hey, it turned out okay.
A lot of veterans didn't look at it quite that way, but I respect
No,
it.
and nor should they.
Right.
Nor should they. And in fact, I was, in return for my gratitude and sticking with, at the time when they needed additional officers, they sent me to beautiful Fort Polk, which wasn't so beautiful then. And a couple of months later, after training people and sending them off, you know, to be grunts, 11Bs, infantrymen, I really felt I need to be doing something else other than that. But of course, with the Medal of Honor in process, I put in my paperwork, but of course I was denied, you know, the ability to go back.
Right.
And even before the war ended, you always feel as though there's something more you could have done, something more you should do. Even after I'd gone through flight school and went to the advanced course at Fort Knox and whatever, I really wanted to go back, and this was in the closing days of Vietnam. So I would have, it took me a while to get the Department of the Army to approve my orders to go to be a light observation IP and then go back to Vietnam.
What year was that, Mike, when you went back?
Well, I didn't go back.
Oh, I see.
I'm
Okay.
getting to that.
I see.
I had a couple of wiser and older pilots come to me and say, Mike, you're stupid. You're dangerous. You will not survive the second tour.
They were very blunt, weren't they?
Yes. But thankfully so, and I owe them a lot too, because it took me about 5 months to get on those orders, but it took me about 5 seconds to get off of them. Right. For some reason, DOD does not like to lose their Medal of Honor recipients,
Right.
and we've had that happen.
Sure, yeah.
And so by going back to war zones and not returning. So, but I went to fly the friendly skies of Germany, and thanks to a couple of wiser pilots than myself. So I owe a lot of people a lot of things that sometimes doesn't seem like it's
You had
the
some
way
good
it should
tours
be.
after the Vietnam War. So
Pardon?
you got to see a lot of places after the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
And counting the 2-year lapse, I think that you said that you spent out of the service. Yeah. Mike, I want you to tell us about your family and what brought you to, you and your wife, Julie, to the Huntsville area. You've lived here, what, 3 years now?
No, we came here in 2014.
14, that's right. You
Yes,
mentioned that,
and I had actually, when I first got out of the military, this is one of the first places I looked for a home, because I had been here off and on back during the 80s when I worked in combat developments with MICOM and some other things coming down from Fort Knox. And you sense the difference in this community. There are a lot of communities that always have this angst going on between the military folks, and you know, you're not welcome in certain places and so forth. But it wasn't that way here, and it's still not that way. And you sense that in a lot of ways. And in particular, I came to an event which Leo Thorson is one of the recipients, and at that time, president of the Medal of Honor Society, put on here in one of the smaller venues. And I met such wonderful and supportive people, you know, of the military and whatever, that I decided, okay, this is what I want to do. But when I retired, of course, Dad was in failing health, and I know we need to wrap this up. And so I ended up spending, rather than going to work for the government again, and not finding something, the choices you make, I never found a choice that was that attractive to me. So people say, oh, come to work for me, come work with me, come, you know, let's go into business together. but I ended up working on the farm for 20 years.
Really? Okay.
I didn't intend for that ever to happen again, but I don't regret a day of it now that the parents are gone, and so you never regret anything you do for them. So at a point where on the trip to Vietnam, I meet this weird girl from Minnesota, and who 6 years later.
You said weird. Now, is she listening right now, or she will be listening to
Well,
this interview, Mike? You know.
You know, this is, I consider that my sense of
Yes, sir.
humor, but she doesn't have, she has a Minnesota sense of humor. But anyway,
Yeah.
she's going back in a couple of days to, commune with some of her high school and college friends. But we work well together
Right.
because of the loss of her brother David and the work that she does with the Gold Star families. She doesn't have the military background, so I can research cases for her. And we work really well together on common projects as well as our own individual projects. And she's been on several trips, but it took her 6 years after that first meeting for her to finally get desperate enough to say, yes, I'll marry you, what the heck. Not doing anything this weekend anyway.
Right.
So, anyway, we do work well on those projects, and unfortunately she can't be with us today.
You were
last part.
inducted into the Hall of Heroes in 2020. Your thoughts on being recognized for what you did on the battlefield here locally?
Well, this is a very accepting, in a lot of towns in Alabama, ain't from around here. But I think the experience of this particular area, you don't have to be from around here. I think the experience has taught them, both good old boys, the local boys, and other people that this is an accepting community that does support its military. It's not that doesn't happen in other places, but you often hear the word unique applied to the area and the cities and the outlying cities and area, and that's true. I came here a lot with, I would meet my friend Charlie here, who's unfortunately passed along now. His dream was to retire here. So we'd meet here, go fishing, they'd look around for houses to buy somewhere down the road or something. But I've always known that this was a good place, and it's worth being a part of that community. And yes, I'm very privileged to be accepted as a member of this community from day one. So,
Mike, we're proud to have you in this community. I want to say that outright. And I want to thank you for participating in our oral history interview series and allowing us to preserve your military experience for the people of this community. Thank you, sir.
Well,
for your time and service
thank you,
and your service to your
Tom,
country. We appreciate that.
You should talk.
I'd like to hear you talk.
Well,
very, very good seeing you and you joining us today. Thank you so much, sir. We appreciate it.
You're most welcome.
Now, if you'd like more information regarding this interview or any interview in our Military Heritage Series, please contact the Madison County Military Heritage Commission website at mcmhc.org. I'm Tom Kinnemer. Thank you for being with us.